On the menu today, let's see if we can turn an A500 Mini into a full-size Amiga 1200 with a working mechanical keyboard. After all, it is about 1.2 times bigger.
Welcome.
So to make our A1200 Maxi, we'll also need this THEA version 2 and this brand new mechanical keyboard from Sergiusz Szczepankiewicz. They're not available yet as he can't find a manufacturer with everything that's going on at the moment, but if you can help him, I've put his email in the video description. Now I've used the THEA before, and it's a handy gadget that lets you turn Commodore keyboards into modern USB keyboards. This one was a very kind donation to the channel and will essentially give us a USB keyboard to plug in to the A500 Mini. It's got some jumpers on it here to select which keyboard you're connecting, and those joystick ports on the side are lined up for the C64 case, so we'll be ignoring those and using the lovely modern gamepad and mouse that came with the A500 Mini. And you'll notice here it recommends mounting it in an Amiga using Velcro, so that's exactly what we'll do. But first, let's make it a little smaller. Put that on Fleabay. Oh, what's this? Oh, my favourite game. Okay, sorry, it's an automatic reflex at this point. So first, let's dismantle the Amiga until we just have the case, just in case, you know. And if you're lucky, you might have got hold of one of the new cases from A1200.net, but as with everything, they're in short supply right now, which is why I'm going to use this one, because, as everyone knows, an Amiga in the hand is worth two in your bush, or something like that. Now I should mention that my A1200 here is faulty. It won't load anything, and that's why I was actually testing the floppy disk drive with Starglider 2. But fear not, I've already got something very special planned for the rest of it, and I'm hoping to get one of those A1200.net cases to go with it, so stay tuned for that. And as I take out the PCB here and notice its Workbench 3.0 chips, I'm reminded of PCB Way and their great quality PCBs starting at just
$5.
Because as we all know, PCB stands for Perifractics Custom Builds, doesn't it?
How do you, Perifractic?
Thank you, Harleyfractic from the game closet.
Bunny!
Oh no!
There.
Anyway, I think to match our snazzy custom keyboard Sergiusz made specially for the channel here, we should give the case a new colour of its own. So let's save the original stickers. Now to remove these you can use fishing wire or even tooth floss, but I'm just using some thin picture hanging wire because I've already hung all my pictures. And we can see this A1200 was inspected in the Philippines by whoever's initials those are. Thanks. Now, some people recommend giving the plastic a light sanding. This can remove some of the specific finish though, and personally with modern paints and their incredible adhesion, I've just never found the need. I mean, for example, this Atari 400 that we resprayed 3 years ago now is constantly having things put on top of it and things moved around, and it still looks brand new. There's not a scratch or a chip on it. So let's just give this case a good scrub with isopropyl alcohol. So now it's time for Puppyfractic the Third to help us choose a colour. And I think a mid-grey will go great with those black and red keys. Oh no, black and grey, yeah. Thanks for the suggestion, Can. Come on then. Oops, almost sprayed the LEDs. Take those out first. And let's mix it up a bit, just for fun. Vention! Vention! Oh, Jesus Christ! If you got the reference, well done. Now, something a lot of people have said is that the floppy drive on the Mini should have just been where the USB thumb drive went. Now, that obviously would have added some complexity and cost. But for us, let's make that right here on our Maxi. And at the same time, find out if the Mini supports USB hubs to give it more ports. It looks really nice like this, but the other two ports become inaccessible due to the ridged design of the floppy port here. So let's take a different approach. Now, I've really grown to hate hot glue, aka snot of the gods. I find it messy and annoying, but it does sometimes occasionally have its use cases. That's why it exists after all. And I think this may be one of those times, because we could spend all day designing and testing and printing drafts of a 3D printed adapter, or we could just fix our modern floppy drive in place in seconds with some hot snot. And like with the rest of this mod, it should be reversible by just heating up the glue again to remove it in the future. Do you like hot snot? Yeah. Do you like to wag your tail? Yeah. I sometimes think you're Shakespearean with this ruff. Okay, can you go get me some toast? Thanks.
This looks like a city, like a little model of a city.
Now, we could have mounted the board further inside and extended all the ports and the power switch to the back of the case, but I just love how they all fit perfectly in these two port openings. But best of all, even the little power button is accessible there on the right. you might be wondering how we're going to keep the keyboard in place. After all, the original had a metal backplate. Well, this does look good though, doesn't it? And the keyboard rested on the motherboard shield, all of which is now gone. But for whatever reason, the keyboard footer rests perfectly here. I'm not sure if he planned it that way, because you're meant to put the backplate back on, but I want to keep it on my original keyboard. But yeah, it even has these markings that match, although they are curiously labelled mechanical adjustment points. But either way, it works, and just needs some legs at the back, and maybe some duct tape to keep it from sliding from side to side. Again, I want to make all of this as reversible as possible. And as is often the case with Commodore cases, Lego seems to fit perfectly. As Steve Jobs loved to say when he was playing with his Lego as a child, "It just works." Sorry. Now, the A1200's original LEDs that I unscrewed can connect to the keyrah to act as a scroll lock, a number lock, and keyboard mode indicators. But it's a bit of a stretch, so let's give them a little DuPont cable hair extension. It's a wrap. The big question now is how to plug the keyrah into the A500 Mini without a cable coming out of the back of the A1200 case and into one of those A500 Mini USB ports there. After all, there's none on the inside of the case now. And the solution is to use this internal port on the USB hub. We still need to get a USB cable from the A500 Mini to that USB hub that we've then connected the keyrah to in turn. I've got an idea to make that much neater, but first let's tidy up the rest of the back. Alright, so now we have a USB coming from the A500 Mini all the way along this cable to the little USB hub in the floppy drive. And that, in turn, connects all the way to the keyrah, which in turn connects to the keyboard. And with that finishing touch in place, it's time to take a look at our finished A1200 MAXI. I'm so happy with how this looks, aren't you? Well, before we go and test it out with some keyboard-intensive Workbench programs, I have a confession. Up until now, the project might have looked reasonably straightforward, but I actually went down a lot of wrong paths, dead ends, breakages, as well as delays waiting for various parts. And I thought you might find it interesting to first take a quick look at some of those challenges that I faced in the What Might Have Been. I had liked the idea of someday somebody opening up this A1200 and finding it powered by a tiny Amiga 500, but ultimately it just took up too much space inside and the keyer wouldn't fit under the keyboard ribbon connector where it needed to be. And I think it looks much better with all the PCBs exposed inside the case, just like a modern Amiga might, or does. In fact, I tried so many different placements for the keyer and various things that the keyboard ribbon cable just fell off at one point. Now don't worry, he had warned me that it was super fragile and this was just a prototype, and he's already working on a fix should the keyboards ever go on sale someday. Alright, well, let's just check our soldering work and make sure there's no shorted connections. It should work fine, but it's very messy, so let's clean it up a bit, get rid of all that flux. And I did at one point have the Mini's PCB fully enclosed with the ports facing inwards and wired a new power button extension to the outside world. But ultimately I abandoned that idea as having HDMI cables, power cables, and 3 USB cables all on the inside was pushing the keyboard up too much, and it was just getting too complicated and messy, when there is, as we saw, a much simpler solution. Because as we all know, KISS stands for Keep It Simple, Simpson. Yeah. And finally, I tried connecting the Mini's own LED connection for power and floppy to the Amiga 1200's LEDs, but unfortunately it just did nothing because their power requirements differ too much. And again, it was going to get too complicated to put power transformers and things in there. So, not the most illuminating experience, but at least it led us to a tidier solution. Sorry. So now you've enjoyed the pain of some of my challenges over the past 2 weeks or so of this project. Let's all enjoy, hopefully, the moment we plug it all in, power it up, and fully test our brand new Amiga with its mechanical keyboard.
Button.
Fingers crossed, everyone. And Koch Distribution kindly sent me one of these floppy USB drives. You get these included free if you buy the A500 Mini from certain stores, but they're not available yet online. I'll update my A1200 conversion kit, link in the description, if and when they are. But now the big moment, does the keyboard do anything? And yep, the arrows on the number pad move the cursor around, which means we can select our USB drive. Oh, and I see that number lock indicator functions as expected too. Nice. Although there doesn't seem to be any action key, so for now we'll just use the gamepad to select things in this menu. Now I should mention that after I filmed that, When Retro Games and Koch Distribution heard about this project, they kindly sent us a black gamepad to match our A1200 MAXI. Cheers, guys. So now let's open up our USB, ready to boot into Workbench. Now, although I had Workbench working using another method, huge thanks to Dan Wood and John McDermott for their help with that, by the way. This different and frankly amazing method for getting into Workbench was perfected by Rico Stofls. Now, I'm not going to give a full tutorial about getting Workbench working because I just don't want to encourage distribution of Workbench, as it is still very much a licensed and current piece of software, and some of the rights holders do great work for the community, such as providing a legal emulation pathway with Amiga Forever, for example, which still gets really cool updates. So I thank you just for understanding why I don't really want to be seen to condone essentially pirating Workbench itself. Getting it running is huge fun, but there is that serious side to it as well. But in a nutshell, this method hacks a game save point on the Mini and tricks it into loading an HDF hard drive file instead of a game save point. And on that hard drive, using Rico's method, you can install Workbench from your legally owned disks, of course. So that's what we've got here, and it then brings up this Amiberry emulator settings page where we can test our keyboard again by hitting escape to continue. And now it brings up the hacked save point itself, actually from the game Citadel. But we don't want that, so we hit home, go back to the carousel, press down, then left, and select the save point for Citadel, which has actually been changed to Workbench. And if I cursor down now, you can see that Amiberry is pointed to an HDF file, and also a work folder on our USB. That's actually a normal folder readable from any PC too, so we can drop Amiga programs in there, as I have indeed done. Again, all programs that I actually own. More on that in a second. But you can see here that you could add ADF floppy images instead of a hard disk file. So now our A1200 has ADF support too. Now, I'm certain that Retro Games Limited are going to come out with official support for ADF and Workbench as well in the future. So it's only a matter of time if you don't want to mess around with this kind of hacky, slightly questionable solution. But anyway, let's escape out of that. And yes, there it is, the beauty that is Amiga Workbench, running on a little A500 Mini, a big A1200 MAXI. So first thing I want to do is test the keyboard fully. And I say, what better way than the speech program.
Does the keyboard work? You bet, or maybe it does.
Miggy was what some of us called the Amiga back in the day, in the UK at least. Also the name of the drummer from Curiosity Killed the Cat, who my sister dated, strangely enough. Hello Miggifractic, if you're watching. But now let's open up the work folder that I dumped a load of programs into from my Mac. And what a mess, because I dumped all those in there before they'd been arranged within Workbench, but we can now at least test the Amiga full stop keystroke to tidy a drawer. I like having tidy drawers, don't you? And that's much better. Well, now let's run which Amiga and find out what this beast is. And you can see all sorts of details. But yes, it's official. Look, this is now an Amiga 1200. And a lot of that can be configured in Amiberry settings, by the way. All you have to do is hit F12. There's lots more fun in here, but I think it's time to run sysinfo. And look at that. So we are the red line, and that means this machine is sitting right between the speeds of an Amiga 3000 and a 4000, or 21.6 times faster than an Amiga 600. And although Amiberry settings do let you specify a lot of this, they can't actually run the emulator processor faster than the physical hardware allows inside the A500 Mini. So it's a real testament to RGL of how great this hardware is that they've put together for us. Alright, now how about that famous Amiga Boing Ball demo? Oh, doesn't seem to be working. Okay, we'll come back to that. And even more famous, perhaps, the Ray Tracing Juggler demo. Press any key to continue, which we can now easily do. Oh, guys, I can't tell you how many hours I left this running on my Amiga as a teenager over those years. Incredible stuff for the time. I'll just never forget his shiny balls. Hi, and finally from classic animation to classic stills, and my favourite version, Deluxe Paint 4. And let's get an eyeful of, no, even more classic, the King Tut image. Now, I don't know about you, but I've always believed the Eiffel Tower should have a big orange ball on top of it, and add some shine there. Ah, there, très bien, monsieur. Ah, oh, merci beaucoup. Ah, au revoir. Wait, did you just see the boing ball? And there it is. It was running behind all along. Yep, let's not forget, Amiga was, of course, one of, if not the first multitasking home computer. Now, before we wrap up, let's just do a full, proper keyboard test. Now, I can't seem to get the apostrophe to show. This is propostrophe. We'll fix that in a second, hopefully. But let's just test the rest. How about caps lock? Yes, all working perfectly. And can we press Control Amiga to reboot? Yes. Wow, I love that. It actually just reboots into Workbench. Now I'm wondering if this Workbench is set up as, yep, British. So let's change it to US layout, as that's what Sergiusz sent me here, a US layout keyboard for me in the good old US&A. Try the apostrophe again and bingo! Yes, it works. And you can quote me on that. See, the quote sign works too. All right, Hippo Player. Well, let's play out with some games music. I mean, this is a games machine after all, although you wouldn't think it to look at it after everything we've done to it. Sorry, I can't stop tinkering with all these programs. Ah, perfect. Okay, so let's play out with a final word processing keyboard test. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and support below, and cheerio.